Yeah, yeah.
Vanakkam Milind Rao, welcome to Film Companion South.
Vanakkam Bharadwaj sir, it's an honor.
Thank you. It's an honor here to listen. Hey, listen. So this Korean film, right? Did it come to you, or did you say I want to remake it? It came to you, right?
It came to me. It came to
Yeah.
me. They were looking at titles that they wanted to make in India, and so then, in fact, they'd already put one in process. This film, Oh Baby, that came out with Samantha earlier. That was so the same company had some other titles as well, and so they were looking at film. They're doing the same in Hindi with Sonam Kapoor with Badla director. He's kind of
Yeah.
so they kind of reached out to me to make it in the South version because of the fact that I'd made Aval and all this, and this was a thriller film as well. So it kind of came to me, and I saw a screener of it, and I thought this will be fantastic to adapt in here because it had a lot of elements that were new for a Tamil audience, and it had a very easy story, like an underdog story, a visually challenged person going up against an antagonist who's kind of like after her. So it's a very easy underdog story that could connect. To our audiences. So it instantly struck a chord with me that I think this might be a terrific movie to make.
Right. And how did the star come in?
Well, so then the star came in next, immediate next step. No, once we adapted this story and we thought that this would be a fantastic film to make as an adaptation in Tamil, and you just then next look at the person who would be the best choice, the biggest choice to pull a film off like this that would reach
Right.
this film to every audience out there in multiple languages in the south, and so at that point of time, Nayanthara was the perfect fit.
Right.
Nayanthara ma'am was like very easy choice, and I was lucky that she felt the same way too. She immediately said yes, and that was like literally 5 minutes after the narration. She said, "Let's do this, Milan." So that's how it all fell into place.
So now Nayanthara is one of the she's one of the top 10 draws, right? She's almost like a male superstar. She's got this huge draw. Now, when you adapt a movie with such a big star, now given Tamil stardom and how it works and how Tamil culture works, because stars come with an image and all that, did you find yourself having to do things like maybe give her a stronger intro shot, give her a, I don't know, some slow motion, or I'm just randomly saying, but you know what I'm trying to say is like, did you find yourself having to tweak a screenplay to give certain star motion so that fans could enjoy that you might not have done like a non-star had done the movie?
See, actually speaking, the story itself came with those elements. She plays
Okay.
a cop, a former, in this film, it's a CBI, ex-CBI agent, and who has, because of an accident, loses her eyesight, but she has all those skills and everything.
Right.
So there was a way to introduce her as kind of this completely with all these skill sets, and then the changeover where she's more
Right.
vulnerable and underdog, and so the story came with those kind of hero moments, which again translates into a vulnerable thing. And then as she grows through this journey, again, when all odds are against her, how she fights back. So that hero moment was built in. So it was very easy to translate into our audience thing for a film that has Nayanthara ma'am as well. So we didn't have to go searching for it; it was there. But we had fun throwing in those extra dialogues that you saw in the trailer with her saying those swear words that challenge. It's just a lot of fun that I think we felt it will connect the right way because it's against a guy who you see is doing a lot of terrible things. So it's not just said for the impact of it
Right.
for a star thing, but you feel so much that this guy needs that he needs to be taken down. That those lines actually work well within that moment as well. So it gives us that balance, that star moment, but you feel that he deserves it, so it doesn't seem like it's done just for that
Right.
value or whatever.
Now, Aval is a horror film, and this one's a thriller. And if you remember, long back, there was something called Kadal to Kalyanam, which is rom-com.
That
What
we
what
wrote.
what draws you to genre films, Milind? Is it because you want to say, I want to get into this particular genre and exploit it to the maximum and see what I can do with it? So far, your films have fit into this. So, what draws you to them?
See, I think as an audience, you come in with an expectation that this is what it's going to give me, which is a genre film and all that. And within that, if you do something that surprises them, I think you have something that can very easily sell to work with an audience. And I think that's why I like to do genre films. And two of my favorite genres is like the horror and thriller element, which is why I'm kind of really focusing more on that as well because it seems to be something that I consume very easily on when I watch something. I prefer to seek out these kind of films and stuff like that.
Right.
So I think it somewhere connects that when I want to make that, it seems to be the easier choice that I would have fun making as well. So I think within that genre, if you just do everything right and you surprise them just a few times, I think the audience gets a complete experience from that, and it's very easy to bring them into that, knowing that this is what they're going to watch. So it just feels like that's an easy way to connect to an audience instantly, instead of rather trying to get them to completely understand the world you're building and
Right.
everything like that.
Right.
They come with some expectations, and you fulfill those expectations in a nice way, and then we got an audience that enjoys a certain experience. So that's how it works. It seems to work for me, actually.
Right. Now, so how did Ajmal come into the picture? Because I think for him, in Tamil at least, the last high-profile film was Ko. He's kind of been doing films after that, but he's not been exactly been in a high-profile film after that. So, was it something actorly that you found in him? Was it his physicality? How did he? Because it's a really unusual choice, and how
Yeah.
did that come about?
Yeah, so it's a bit of both that you said. That was definitely his physicality. He's a big guy, and then going up against a vulnerable, visually challenged woman instantly seems to raise the stakes. And
Right.
and we've seen him as a solid performer in these movies, and Anjade and
Yeah.
Ko
Yeah.
and all of that. So
Yeah.
it surprises me that he's actually not been doing. I mean, he himself said that he's done a few. Films that he felt maybe he shouldn't have done or something like that, but he's really been taking a break and waiting for the right kind of thing. He called me after I was actually speaking. He called me and said he really liked that film, and if there's something that I was doing next, then he'd like to be a part of it and all that. So then when I was casting for this, I remember this conversation we had. So then it's kind of struck a chord. Yeah, that he called me. He's excited. He's when you have an actor who's already excited to be a part of what you're doing, then it makes your choice easier. And he's a good actor as well. So I just called him and I told him this, and he instantly agreed. So it was, you knew that you're coming into a person who kind of has done interesting performances before. So he would be able to carry this also and deliver something interesting. So it just, and he's not been in the space for a long time. So there was a freshness to the casting, because you needed someone really strong to go up against a, Nayantara ma'am kind of thing. So the balance seemed right. And so it just all fell into place.
As a director, were you a little intimidated maybe like the first few days when you have a star before, like a superstar before you, and then you kind
Yeah,
of,
yeah.
because the earlier film you had Siddharth, who's the star as well. But the point is, you know him, and you guys have a rapport and all that kind of stuff. But here, you're directing a like a megastar, and was there a bit of like getting the vibe right, the rhythm right, happening?
See, this is exactly what you just said was exactly what I was going to say. The even in the previous film, I was working with a star like Siddharth, but we were friends from before. We've been assistant directors to Mani sir for third, and we've been friends for like so many years, and so it was very easy to translate that onto the sets and all that. But here it's completely fresh and everything, and and she's a big star, like a superstar, lady superstar, and all that. So I did have that thing, but you know what? She's so professional, and she made it so easy because she insisted that we do like a test shoot before that to get her body language right, to see how her deglam look is looking on camera, and to see that she was looking real as a visually challenged person, and all of that. And it's their production, and she insisted on taking a day's shoot with, it's a cost, it's an actual cost that they wanted to incur it to make sure all this was happening. So then I know that we are all coming from the same place of making this character come to life and everything. And I think if you've seen it from the trailers, from what I've been hearing, everybody likes this look that she has in the film, and it was completely. I was like so happy that I didn't have to really even tell her or convince her about this, and she took the effort to just say that, Milind, let's do it this way and all of that. And it just when you have that kind of interest and all that, and it just makes your thing so easy, so much more easier. And within 2 3 days into the shoot, it just became very easy because she's that professional, even when it comes to detailing in her character and continuity and all of that stuff. So it was just made life much simpler for me.
This thing about the test shoot you say sounds interesting. Now, typically in Tamil cinema, uh, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, all you had to do is put a black pair of black glasses on some person and give them a white cane, and that would be like it blind, like it's like a semaphoric kind of thing. And then a little later, it became like they would be going about like that. Now, how do you, as a modern film director, and like in today's age, like when you said test shoot and making Nayanthara look like convincing as a blind person who is a visually challenged person, can you give me like maybe one aspect that in older films, again, there would be things like they will count the number of steps to the sofa or something like that, so they know that this is there. What were some of the things that you did that to break that cliche that the visually challenged person had earlier?
Yeah. See, there were some surprising things that Nayanthara ma'am herself did, which is that she would use the objects around her, which is like if she kind of would bump into something, she would actually bump into that, and it's just made that performance. I wouldn't say that when you walk down this place, there's a door, so you might bump into the door, and then no, it's automatically something that she would do. Like I would be focusing on the scene, but she would take that thing that I might just, this is a new place, I might bump into this and then so react to that with a bit of pain and then move around it and come. And those kind of things instinctively are things that she did. And we took a lot of liberties, a lot of care to show the detailing that exists around us, whether it's technology, whether it's like we shot sequences in the metro station, which is very visually challenged friendly. So they have the separate path for blind people to touch and feel, and there's this raised bump kind of platform. So she feels that and walks, and then the elevators that she uses has the braille, what do you call, braille points there on it to suggest up or down. So we had close-up shots on that. So how she gets along in her everyday life using these things around her. There's an Android phone has these capabilities for blind people that you can use it in blind visually challenged mode, where it will speak out the voice of the call, or this voice that of the caller that calls you. So we have integrated all that into the movie. So we have tried to kind of, modern day film, used all these tools to see how a blind, visually challenged person can cope with life. And apart from that, we did a lot of videos references that this is how they cook, this is how they walk, this is how they do their day-to-day activities, and even her clothes, the color she checks of the clothes. We have shots in the song that where she touches the braille tags. That's the special braille tags for the clothes, which will let them know that's the color of the clothes that they're wearing, for visually challenged people. So we've had close shots of these kind of things and all that just sets you up into how a visually challenged person can exist in today's world with all of these tools that are around them, that kind of this thing. So I think, and beyond all of that, her vision, it's one of the biggest cliches that you said was 70s 80s movie. It was very easy to put on these dark glasses and just say you're blind, and we wanted to avoid that bit of a tried tested trope kind of thing, because I think a lot of your expression gets cut with hiding your eyes. And Nayanthara ma'am was very keen that we didn't want, and me and even Vignesh Sivan as a producer director, we all had discussions about the thing, and we were very clear that we didn't want to lose that expression in the eyes and all of that stuff. So and that made it so much harder for her as a performance, because you know how it is in front of a camera that you're trying to look deadpan and just focus on one place, but if there's some people crossing and all, it's so difficult to maintain your line of sight and everything. And it was a very difficult performance. It looks very natural and live in the film, but it's very difficult to maintain that. And I think it was very challenging for her as an actress to pull that off. So these are some of the things that we did, and I think she did a lot of effort into. And we took a time. The first wave, the second wave affected us, and we had to come back and shoot a lot of stuff because we were waiting to finish it. And every time she came back, she would be right there in that zone of that visually challenged thing. So I think it must have taken a lot out of her, but really amazing to see that she was on point every time when we came back to resume. It was right there in the first frame, and I really didn't have to, because it's very easily can be called out, that hey, no, see, yeah, she didn't look blind in that shot or something like that. But those moments were never really happened unless there's something that went into a high, and we had to do a retake or something like that. But otherwise, it was just amazing to see that consistency in the way she was able to stay focused in the character and all of that. So that was amazing.
Now, what is it about Korean films that lend themselves so easily to Indian remakes? Is it a sensibility? Because there are many of them that have been remade, and do you think they just work like with a little bit of tweaking? They just are like our audience, and they just work right there.
Yeah, because a lot of emotions, a lot of words, that amma, appa, and a lot of actually the same words in Korean. Amma and appa, like what we say, is the same amma, appa in Korean, and there's a lot of Tamil words are same in Korean. So I don't know. There's some kind of a cultural connect, and their storytelling and their emotions and a lot are what we can our audiences can relate to, and I think that's why a lot of people here watch a lot of Korean films, dramas, and
Yeah.
Indians love watching Korean content and all of that. I think it translates very easily. It's some kind of very brother from another mother kind of kind of connect that's happening there somewhere. So I think that's why their stories translate so easily. And of course, there's a bit of tweaking that we had to do to kind of just just make the audiences a little more rooted. But otherwise, the broader emotions all just seem to sit correctly, and in this story as well. So it was very easy to. That's why I felt it'll connect very easy to our audiences, and thought that it would be a good fit and good film to adapt.
Now, you've assisted Maniratnam on Guru and Aideritu Yuva, and Kanathil Muthamittal was your first film with him. So now, when you work with such a visually unique director, at what point did you begin to feel yourself find your own voice as a stylist? For example, what I'm trying to say is, initially, were you always thinking, okay, this is how Maniratnam would set up the shot? You know, did you feel yourself thinking that, and then like, did you have to move to your own visual language, or did the snapping just come very easily as soon as our started, and like you were able to completely like move away from that?
See, I think what you learn automatically from him that rubs off into your films is in terms of just the way you stage a shot, in terms of just having background action which is real, and having the way the kind of characters would be doing, having something busy to do in the scene, every scene, all that you see him doing all those things with his actors. So it automatically feels like that's what you learn, and that's what you automatically do with
Right.
your actors and stuff like that. But otherwise, I think it's not something that you can kind of take away, because his visual voice is so unique and so kind of, I think, working, he's so many levels up that I don't think it's very easy to do that. But somewhere you are trying to find what works for you, and that's what you're trying to execute. But a lot of those basic staging and all that comes automatically because you have been doing that as an AD working on his set, right? Setting up, and he would really, kick your ass if you don't really just do it right. So when you learn that this is how you set it up, your background action and your staging and giving these actors these props to work with to keep them busy and all of that, those are all things that he tells you to do for his shots. You automatically tend to do those things for your shots and your with your actors and all of that. So I think those kind of things rub off onto you, but after that I think it's about finding your voice and all of that.
Now, when it comes to writing or painting or anything, any art, right? You find your voice when like you consume a lot of stuff, and then that mixes with your own subconscious and your own inside, whatever is inside you, and then something emerges and that becomes your voice, because that's how people develop a voice. They first start by imitating or admiring a lot of like directors or whatever it is, and then what is inside you comes out and mixes with that, and something kind of becomes like your own thing. Can you name a few directors whose visual voice has really inspired you? Because one of the things that almost everybody said about Aval is how technically accomplished it is, and leaving the sound aside, even as a film, it was like this very very fantastically staged film. Like it had a cinematic language. It was not just a script level film. So, like, who are some of the people that you've that have inspired you, that you've admired and taken stuff from?
I don't think I consciously do this, but there are the greats like
No, I know,
Fincher.
I'm not talking about stealing. I'm talking
No, no,
about,
no, no.
how.
I would say it is stealing in a way.
Yeah,
No, that's
yeah,
what
yeah.
I would definitely not would pay homage to that kind of stuff any day. If that was what it is, and I would not be ashamed to call it stealing as well. I would love to steal from Fincher or Scorsese or Tarantino. But I'm saying there's a lot of horror filmmakers are great filmmakers, like visionary filmmakers, like James Wan, and like David Fincher has made Aliens as well, and then Stanley Kubrick and Shining and all of that stuff, and they are great masters as well, and William Friedkin in The Exorcist and all of those. A lot of homages will be there in Owl. People say it's a rip-off, but it's not rip-off, it's an homage, like that. So those are all things that those are all kind of visual cues that you thought that when you were watching those films, hey, this is fantastic way to tell a shot or something like that. So when you're trying to do your film and that genre, you try to uh, pay homage to that and try to do it that way and create that same ambience and effect, and that's where some of the people that you try to look up to and try to kind of see if you can recreate that ambience here is what you try to do. So I would say it's a lot of stealing from here and there that kind of goes into what you're doing end of the day, and I think every filmmaker would say that. I
Yeah.
think yeah, I think that's how, and in that you try to do something that automatically you gravitate to, and that's where it becomes your voice, I think.
Now you're straddling a very interesting space right now where you came into a film industry that was wholly theatrical based, and now we're looking at probably a 50-50 shift between to OTT, where a lot of films are automatically going to go to OTT or at least be planned for OTT as original projects or whatever it is. If you were yourself 20 years ago, uh, what would your film strategy be? Because I'm just trying to use you to give advice to young filmmakers today to say, what should you do? Should you still aim for the theatrical? Should you just go for whatever you get? Should you say, OTT is better because I can do exactly what I want and show them? And then, what would your advice be to the young Milind Rao who came to you today and said, dude, I need to plan my career strategy with this in mind. What should I do?
Wherever you get the chance, make a film.
That's
That's
how.
it. That's all. I think this is. I think bigger, greater filmmakers than me have said this, and I believe so much in this. I think just making a film and making more and more films is the only way you can kind of like keep improving and finding your own voice and craft and everything. So wherever you get the chance, just make your film, make your series, and don't stop and just keep making it. And I think you will finally get where you want to go. That's all I'm saying. So that is the only thing I would tell a 20-year ago Milind Rao, that this is what, just do it. Don't just sit around and wait for this perfect opportunity. Just make the film when wherever
You
you
did a
can.
bit of that though.
I did,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm saying that now, just don't wait around, just make the film that you want to do, because I think people are consuming it equally in all formats now. So like you shouldn't look down on this or think that only that is what I want to do. It's like a series is being consumed as much and celebrated as much as a film is, and so why shouldn't you just make a good series and then move on to making a tentpole big film as well. So I don't think you should just keep waiting for that one big theatrical film or window for something like that to happen. And I think you should just keep making films, and that's the advice I would say to myself, to a younger myself, and if it helps anybody out there, that's the advice I would give to them.
Fantastic. Milind, thank you so much and all the best for Netrikan.
Thank you so much.
Oh, by the way, it also registered the fact that you have a somebody who's called the Lady Superstar, and
Yeah.
you have a title from the original superstar
Yes,
who's Rajinikanth. That's
absolutely.
intentional, right?
That's intentional.
Yeah, you
Yeah, see,
wanted to
because the point is that it was a superstars film, and a lot of superstars, sirs, titles were being used for male actors, and so we thought that this can be for a lady superstar as well, and it perfectly fit into the. It also fit into the
yeah, yeah.
story and everything like that, and so as a producer and like Vignesh Sivan and Nayanthara ma'am and all of us felt this would be like just the best. It's such an iconic title, that it just felt for the kind of character she's playing, a visually challenged person and all that, just seemed to kind of completely make sense. And so we got the thing from Kavitalaya Productions, KB sir's company. They had the rights to the title, and they were very, very nice of them to kind of give us the NOC to go ahead and use it. And so it just seemed to be a perfect fit. And I think a superstar's title is deserved for a lady superstar. It just completely fell into place.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Milind. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure talking to you, and
Yeah.
all the
You
best again.
too.
Yeah.
You too, Bharadwaj sir. Vanakkam. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. Bye bye.